After the Spartans assembled their army to march north to meet the Persians at Plataea, the Athenian navy led by Xanthippus, who was Themistocles' successor as commander, sailed to meet the Greek naval fleet at Delos. While there, delegates from the island of Samos secretly arrived and stated that the Ionians would rebel again if they saw the Greeks sail. They continued by stating that the Persian ships had bad sailors and condition. The Greeks decided to help and set sail for Samos. The Greeks arrived at Samos and prepared to engage the Persians. The Persians had heard of the approach of the Greeks and held a council where they resolved not to risk a battle and sent the Phoenician ships away, and the rest sailed to the mainland of Ionia, where a land army of troops left behind by Xerxes on his way through was stationed to keep guard over Ionia. The Persians arrived at the beach and surrounded their ships with a palisade made of stones and tree trunks. The Greeks heard that the Persians had fled to the mainland and were unsure what to do. They then decided to sail for the mainland and made themselves ready for a sea fight by making boarding bridges and whatever else was necessary. When they reached the shore, no ship ventured out to meet them in battle, as they observed the ships all dragged ashore within the barrier, as well as a strong land force in battle array upon the beach. The Greeks came as close to land as possible, and a herald called out to the Ionians in the Greek language to fight on their side when the battle begins. Remember, Ionia was originally a Greek colony before the Persians took over, so many knew the Greek language. Leotychides, the Spartan naval commander, learned this strategy from Themistocles at Artemisium, in that either the Ionians would be persuaded to revolt, or the Persians would mistrust the Ionians. So the Greeks sailed their ships to land, and disembarked and arrayed themselves for battle. The Persians disarmed the Samians as they suspected them of working with the Greeks. They also dispatched the Milesians to guard the paths that lead up into the heights of Mycale, suspecting they might defect as well. After removing potential internal threats, the Persians left the camp and prepared for battle. As the Greeks moved towards the Persians, word came that the Greeks had conquered the army led by Mardonius at Plataea. This greatly boosted the morale of the Greek army, making them more eager to risk their lives. Before we get into the Battle of Mycale, let's compare the two armies. The Greek army consisted of around 40,000 men, and only 3,000 armed as hoplites. The rest were lightly armed since they were the rowers of the ships, thus the poorest. The Persian army consisted of about 60,000 men. From a strategic point of view, battle was not necessary for either side. The actions of the two sides were most likely reflected as morale for the Greeks and confidence for the Persians. Tactically, the Persian fleet held an advantage at sea, since the Athenian part of the Greek fleet was still raw in seamanship, but the Persian fleet instead sought the tactical advantage of joining the land army under the leadership of Tigranes and fortifying a position in the open. The Greeks still held the upper hand, as Marathon and Thermopylae had shown that large numbers give little advantage against the heavily armed hoplites. Let's begin the battle. The Greeks formed two wings. On the right wing near the shore were the Athenians, and on the left wing were the Spartans. The Athenian wing marched across level ground towards the Persian camp, while the Spartan wing attempted to flank the Persians by passing through the hills and land. The Athenian wing engaged the Persians, while the Spartans were still approaching. The Athenians hoped to win the victory before the Spartans arrived, and attacked more zealously. Although the Persians stood their ground for a while, they eventually broke and fled to their palisade. The Athenians followed them into their camp, at which point many Persians fled from the camp, except the main Persian troops who grouped together and fought the Athenians. The Spartan wing finally arrived, outflanking the camp and falling on the rear of the remaining Persian forces. The Samians, seeing the outcome in favor of the Greeks, joined in on their side. This inspired other Ionian contingents to turn on the Persians as well. The Milesians guarding the passes also turned on the Persians by misdirecting fleeing Persians, so they ended up back among the Greek troops, then began killing the fleeing Persians. Ionia has officially once again revolted a second time from the Persians. The Persians that survived fled and made their way to Sardis. The Greeks set fire to the Persian ships, as well as the palisade after removing all the booty, and found many caskets of money. The Greeks, after finishing off the remainder of the Persians, sailed away to Samos and held a council concerning the Ionians. Leotychides proposed that they evacuate the Ionian cities and bring them to the Greek mainland, since it would be difficult to defend Ionia against more Persian attacks. Xanthippus objected to this, since the Ionian cities were originally Greek colonies, and didn't want to give them up to the Persians. Leotychides then agreed with Xanthippus that no change would occur. The Greeks then sailed north to break down the bridges at the Hellespont to prevent the Persians from launching another invasion. However, the bridges were already gone. Upon this discovery, Leotychides and the Peloponnesians sailed back to Greece, while the Athenians resolved to cross over to the Thracian Chersonese and laid siege to Sestos, the strongest fortress in that region. This marked the beginning of a new phase in the Greco-Persian Wars, known as the Greek counterattack. The goal was to remove Persian influence along the Aegean Sea and stop the Persians from launching another invasion. But we will learn more about the Greek counterattack in the next episode. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you like this type of content. Thank you all for watching.